Hey everyone, welcome to the Happy New Year. I know that it takes a bit of time for people to jump on the stream, so I'm going to start with some topics that I wanted to talk about today, and then we'll get into people's questions and answers and things like that. So if you're watching this post the stream, I'm going to be talking about, using a little bit of this book, which I've used to do my series on personality types in Chinese medicine. And I'm going to be talking about New Year's goals. So how to achieve your New Year's goals or how to create some goals using the ancient wisdom of Chinese medicine. Like, why are some people just more wired to have goals than other people? So coming at you from my music studio room actually today in Perth, it's been a massive heat wave here, like huge. And today is one of the cooler days. So if I have my aircon on, it makes a massive noise. So I'm gonna do my best to not have the air. I don't have the aircon on now, otherwise you would always just be able to hear that this shushing sound. I may have to turn it on. Let's see how we go. But I really want to encourage people, and I wanted to hear from you guys if you have questions about. Well, you can have questions about any Chinese medicine, but I thought I'd make it a little bit of a theme today so that it's a little bit more structured in the stream. So talking about goals and health goals and why are some personality types like more prone maybe to make goals and keep their goals and stay on them, and others not so much. And also want to talk a little bit about seasons. So for most people watching this channel, you're probably in the opposite season to me. So 44 degrees was the hottest temperature we got to last week. Literally, I think it was the day after Christmas Day. So Christmas Day was 43, 44 is 111 Fahrenheit. It's just hot. It's incredibly hot. So I think I'm going to have to I think I need to go into YouTube and do something quickly because I always forget to do this to test the stream. So sorry if people are, I'll just do this while we get sort of into it. Yes, so it was super hot, and the weather makes a big difference in like the momentum of the season, let's say. So I've done a couple of videos on like springtime season, particularly because that's the biggest season in Chinese medicine for momentum. And actually that would be the best season to have New Year in, right? Spring. And I was thinking about this today. I was thinking Chinese New Year is usually around like end of January, sometimes even as late as the third week of February. And that possibly it relates to the seasons of spring. And that makes sense, right? Because they're coming out of winter in China. They're opposite to what I am. And I understand, look, that it's very, is this thing working? Let's have a look. Oh, yes, it is. I understand that, when you grow up in a certain season, it becomes very hard to. I'm just going to see if I can fix this. Oh, there it is. It's very hard to think of something else. Sorry, I'm doing something on my computer at the same time as doing this. But I am listening. I'm just sort of, instead of having one of those videos where everybody, you have this like little thing where it's like waiting for people to come, I just kind of start these things and just start. So look, when you grow up in a season, it's like, you don't think really that much else of it. Like it's always been summer at Christmas for me. It's never been winter. Right? You watch these videos with the snow and you think, oh, I wish I could have a snowy Christmas. Like I could never imagine it being that snowy. Now, what's a bit ridiculous in Australia is that we follow the English traditions of Christmas and we have these massive roasted lunches and, dinners or whatever you're going to have. Like we have those traditional Christmassy foods, which is really not what you should be eating at 43 degrees, like over 100, 111 or whatever it is Fahrenheit. It's not, that's becoming sort of out of season. I guess it's just one day. It is just Christmas, so that's fine. Yeah. So how do we utilize the momentum to utilize our New Year's goals, because it's kind of like, well, okay, the new year's coming. It is a new year. So it's something to think, okay, 1 year's ending, another year's coming. And that's a good time to think about goals. But we shouldn't just have goals at any, at one time of the year. We should have goals all the time. And something that's helped me a lot in business is like writing your goals down regularly. Now, one of the business people I follow, that's Grant Cardone, he says, write your goals down every day. Right. Now, when I first heard that, I was thinking, oh, that sounds a bit ridiculous. But I did that for a whole year. I was every day I write my goals down. Now, I don't do that all the time now, but I should probably make a goal for 2022 to do that again. But what that does is, it reminds you, okay, so one of the reasons why you don't stick with your goals is because you lose track of them. Now, I always have my goals written up on the wall or somewhere I can see them. It doesn't have to be for everybody to see, but somewhere at least I can see them, and then I'm in charge of them. What's that? Light on. Oh, I've lost the power. Hang on one second. It's better. I unplugged. I am still here. I unplugged the power. I just realized that my light that I spent ages setting up wasn't turned on. So New Year's goals, right? So if you have questions about Chinese medicine, you're just jumping in the stream now, feel free to ask your questions. They don't have to be about this topic. They can be about other things as well. We can talk about whatever. So it's definitely going to make a difference about your personality type. Now, you could think about your type. I hit myself in the eye with this book. This is a great book if you're interested in like understanding the personality types and the different seasons that relate to those types, the different kind of attributes that people have. So like, for instance, if you're a wood type, you're going to be just naturally goal orientated. And what then happens, this is what I find, this is just from me perceiving things, is those wood types then tell other people about, well, why don't you have your goals? Like, I'm a wood type of person. So it's naturally easy for me to make goals. It's more unnatural not to make goals, let's say. So I'm more out of balance if I don't make goals than someone that isn't that type. And what can happen is sometimes the people who love making goals, let's say, if they're all those sorts of the wood type, or sometimes even like a metal type, which are more like following the rules and structure, and they like structure, so they might create goals to create that structure, right? If you're an earth type or a fire type or any other type, it might not come across as, well, it's not as easy to implement as you say it is. Right now, I don't always just take advice from wood types of people. I take advice from all types of people. I don't say, oh, I can only take advice from people who are my personality type. But I just think that's something to think about, and that's maybe something why we resonate with certain types of people more than others, even in life. So that was something I was thinking about. So certainly, like the momentum to keep your goals going is a wood element thing. So that's where springtime comes in, right? So spring is just naturally going to help you do that. And if you're sitting watching this stream and it's winter time and it's nighttime for you, so you can see you might not be able to see, but it is daytime for me. It's 10:43 a.m. So it might be 10 p.m. for you, right, watching this, or 9 p.m. if you're in the US. It's not the greatest time right now in the middle of winter to be thinking, like, to use the momentum. So it doesn't mean you can't make the goals. But what's a good thing to give yourself a little bit of leeway in, if you're in that season, is to say, okay, I'm going to make my goals for 2022, but I'm not going to give myself, there's a few ways to go about it. You could just say, I'm going to try my best to keep to my goals from the start, right? And that's a good way to start. So go, right, tomorrow's New Year's Day, I'm going to start my plan. Right? A lot of people have diet, or I'm going to quit smoking, or I'm going to do something like that. But should you falter along that way, or not be able to keep up with the goals that you've set, relapse or something like that, not be too hard on yourself at that point and say, okay, self, I've not adhere to all these goals, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of opportunity to restart them in springtime, let's say, rather than go, oh, well, I haven't done them, I've given up. So almost like you could say, okay, at the new year, I'm going to set my goals for 2022, and I'm going to start these goals in spring. Now, you can start them now, but it's easier to start them in spring. Now, why is it easier to start in spring? Because I've got a video on this channel called, how to be healthy in springtime. I think something like spring seasonal stuff. Now, the wood element is the spring, relates to spring, and it's the growth and it's spreading. And so if you think of things like in winter, it's going from inward to outward. And in summer, like where I am now in Perth, it's hot. So everything's outward. Like that's why it's easy to sweat. That's why it's easy to, this is the season of sweating, right? As in, not that you should be sweating all the time, but if you're going to sweat, this is the season to sweat in. Things are outwards. Your yang is outwards. And the momentum to push it outwards is what the spring season's doing, right? It's almost like, once a plant's kind of established, it's somewhat hard to kill that plant. I was thinking about that today. I've got this little plant that I grew in my garden. It's like an indigenous bush medicine, and I grew it from a seed. I'm not very good at growing stuff. I'm a terrible plant grower, but I've gotten better over the years because I've kind of looked at it. Now, what I had to do with this seed was, I forget the name of it, scarification it's called. So you basically simulate a bushfire to get the seed to germinate, right? Because I bought this little packet of seeds, and I really wanted to grow this plant. It's like a special indigenous Aboriginal bush medicine plant. And so I got these seeds and I had to smoke over the top of them. Like I just used some incense smoke, literally, probably, I think like a sage stick or something, to germinate them, because they said that's actually what sparks them to germinate. And they call that scarification. So you have to cut the seed a tiny bit. And so what this was telling you, like from watching this stuff in nature, was saying, well, this is like a mechanism that's inbuilt into the plant to keep it from never dying, sort of thing. So let's say because in Australia we have horrendous bushfires. Like this year we haven't had any, probably because the last year before the pandemic, before in 2018 and 19, we had the worst bushfires. Particularly 2019 was like horrific, like massive amounts of bushland were burned. Not in the place where I live, although we did have some fires. So what happens and that's natural in Australia, like it's nothing to do with global warming, it's just natural. Like you get bushfires, right? Big bushfires happen. And Indigenous people do burn-offs and prescribed burn-offs naturally, and like a lot of where I live in Perth, we do that a lot as well. And that's why we don't have as many bushfires as what they do in eastern states. Anyway, this is not a lesson on bushfires. But what these plants have is like this inbuilt capacity to kind of regrow after a bushfire. So it's like to get them to grow, you have to simulate that bushfire. And I find that fascinating. Nature has all these little lessons in there for you, right? So once that plant's established, like it was hard, every day I was watching that plant, right? Oh, is a seed growing? Is it, and I had germinated, I think I germinated like 5 seeds. Well, of the seeds I planted, like a little handful of seeds I planted and did the scarification to, 5 of them germinated and 2 of them grew into plants. Now, one, for some reason, has grown into a bigger plant than the other plant. Obviously, the conditions have been right for it. It loves its situation. So look, just so if people are listening to this, you can listen along, that's fine, but you can also, oh, thank you. Never had a super sticker before, Veronica. Thank you. It's just a little weird thing popped up then. I was just going to say, I hope people are listening to this. And if you want to ask a question, you can ask a question. Oh, thank you. It's £10 super sticker. Wow. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Anyway, so feel free to ask your questions, as many as you like. So what happens with these seeds, right? Once they've established, it's hard to kill that plant, right? Now, we just went through this 44-degree days, and I was worried, oh, my plants are going to die. You have to water them so much. But this plant hasn't died. It's strong. Like the sticks are strong. The leaves are strong. Like that, it can withstand. And it's the same as that with your goals. So when your goals are little, like that first day, day 1, day 2, it's like it easily dies. It easily just, you know, it's like when you decide I'm going to quit alcohol or something like that. I'm going to quit smoking, and you think, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then it doesn't take much, you know, knock, knock. Someone comes, knocks on the door and says, oh, do you want to go out and get pissed? And next thing you know, you've broken your goals. And you're like, oh, just one time will be okay or whatever. Like, or do you want to have a smoke or something? And so you're easily tempted, right? But when you've had that resolve for a long time, it's almost like whatever you've decided to do has grown into a strong plant, right? Or you can withstand the nature, the difficulties of nature and all this sort of stuff. Well, thanks, Veronica. Happy New Year. I'm in the UK, so I always miss your live stream. Does Chinese medicine help with eczema? Yeah. So yeah, it's really hard for Australia and the UK. Like any good time for the UK, like to be 7 p.m. in the UK is almost like 3 a.m. my time. I do streams for my music sometimes. I wake up at like 2 a.m. to do a stream for people at 7 p.m. I've done it not all the time. I do it when I do like a single launch or something for my music. So I know the time zones is hard to fit that time zone, but I hope you're not I hope this is not too much of a crazy hour for you. So yes, Happy New Year. Excuse me. And thank you for your super sticker. It's almost 3 a.m. Yeah, I'll bet that it is. So yeah, look, eczema and skin conditions, we can talk a little bit about those things. It's something that a lot of Chinese medicine practitioners say, oh, it's hard to treat, it's hard to treat, it's hard to treat. And I was listening to another practitioner talk about that, and he says, oh, because Chinese medicine people keep saying it's hard to treat, that maybe that's why it's so hard to treat, right? Like it was something that when I was back in my high school, back in my Chinese medicine school, 2001, I remember my teacher saying, oh, skin stuff is so hard to treat, so hard to treat. In the system of medicine that I do now, in the classical system, we do have a different approach to skin stuff, which you don't generally have in traditional Chinese medicine. It's part of traditional Chinese medicine, but most TCM practitioners wouldn't take that pathway of doing it. So there's a few different options of it. And one of the reasons why it can be hard to treat is skin things like particularly like eczema tends to not be something that just like comes and goes, right? So there's some skin problems where I've seen really good results with that have been we'll just keep that on there so we talk about the skin. Some skin stuff I've treated that's been acute, like literally just happened, is a lot easier to treat. Definitely much easier to treat. Some stuff, let's get rid of that. Some things where it's a multifaceted issue why it's there. That's part of the problem. So if it's been there since your childhood, has that then become part of the constitution of your body? Now, I'm not saying you can't get rid of it, but that can be sometimes why it's difficult to treat it. So there's a few different strategies with Chinese medicine and herbs and stuff. So one strategy is like getting blood flow to the skin. And particularly for eczema, you want to stop the itching, because the itching is the main thing that's like causing people the distress. And if you can stop the itching, then often they stop scratching and then the skin has a chance to heal. So it's like this cycle, right? Once the new patches aren't coming up everywhere, then there is a strategy of treatment more to like help the body heal the skin, like tonify the blood. Now, it's not an easy thing. I'll give you an example. There's a person that I know in Perth who I studied Chinese medicine with, and she had like the most horrific skin condition, and it probably took her 4 to 6 years of treatments, and she was so committed. Like it was terrible. I think it was like psoriasis, but those psoriasis and eczema in the way it's treated in Chinese medicine are fairly similar, just that psoriasis can be, you can take hold of your whole body kind of thing. And there's obviously an internal component to psoriasis that's like different to eczema, but as in the arthritis kind of connection things. But what I'm getting at is she did heal herself with the herbs, but she had to take them for a long time. And I remember, like, I mean, not like every day for 4 years that she was taking herbs, but she was taking like literally the boiling up herbs for years, right? And her condition was terrible. I thought that her skin would never heal, honestly. Like, I remember being in class with her thinking, I wondered if that would ever, fix up. Like, so it's possible. Like, it's not like I've not seen that to happen. Acupuncture, what it does is a few things. So acupuncture can be very useful to help stop like pain and itching, like sensory things associated with it. And then that definitely stimulating the blood flow to the skin, which is all of this stuff is related to getting your own body to heal itself. So there's a few things that are kind of important for all conditions, but particularly for skin stuff, because it's a long-term thing, one is sleep. I know you're up at 3 a.m., but that's okay because it's a holiday time. But sleep is important, right? Because that's the only way your body can rejuvenate blood through sleep and obviously your diet. But if your diet's healthy and you're eating the right things and you're taking the herbs and all those sort of things, but your sleep isn't good, then that becomes a downfall that you can't kind of rectify with something else. It's not like you can take more herbs to rectify the sleep. So that's something. There's strategies with herbal medicine that use like cooling herbs, so heat clearing herbs. Sometimes we work on your digestive system and opening the digestive system and letting the heat like almost left my phone on. A little like a mild purging the heat. Oh, sorry, I just clicked off the thing. The itching is rotting my sleep. Yeah. So that would be the strategy you would want to start with first. So I don't know if you've tried acupuncture already. And I understand for these kind of conditions, it can be very expensive because like the condition itself you need to continuously treat it to kind of like let it go away. It's possible acupressure could help you. And there's a few things you could try. And obviously acupressure, it's not going to hurt you to try it. And it's not going to be costing you any money to try it. It's just the problem with acupressure for this sort of stuff is if your skin's already inflamed, sometimes it's hard to press the points. It's easier to, like a needle going into a point is going to be different to a whole hand sort of, you're not going to want to give yourself a massage if you've covered in eczema everywhere. So you like, I'm just trying to think what you could do. So certainly there's some points on your hands. This is more for the itchiness. So one way of thinking of itchiness in Chinese medicine, this is a Neijing strategy, like it's the oldest text of Chinese medicine, connects itching with your heart, which is your mind, right? Now, I'm not saying it's in your mind, but it's a sensory thing. So it's a yang aspect of your body. It's not a physical, like you can't, see an itch. You can only experience it. Like it's a felt experience, exactly the same as pain. So you think about your heart or your shen and the organs that are associated with that. So the two channels you would want to use is the pericardium channel. I'll see if I can write this down. So there's a point called PC6, PC8. Oops, pressed enter before I finish this thing. So pericardium 8 and pericardium and heart 8 are good ones, and pericardium 6 on here. So on your hand, I'll see if we can get this closer. If you sort of go like this with your hand, where this finger fits in, where these two fingers fit in between the two bones. So if I go on the other side, on that side and that side, but opposite that. So this is your Sanjiao channel here, and that's a good channel to treat anyway. So this is your heart channel, heart 8, pericardium 8. Now those points are really deep in the hands, so you kind of want to use like the back of a pen just get right in the camera to press the cover over my face. It'll just link on that. Yep. So you want to press right in there, right? So I'm going to press as hard as I can, and then you'll sort of see there's a little mark there. Those points can be good for calming your mind and maybe possibly treating the itch in that way. That's a possibility. I hope that's kind of thankful. I just read your comment at the same time. I've got my camera in a different spot, and it's like kind of like right in front of the computer. I'll just move this off to the side. I hope that's helpful in some way. So you could try those pericardium points. Like if you're waking up in the middle of the night, and you're just like, oh, this itch is crazy. Another thing that kind of then leads to that it might possibly help, and please don't take this like, oh, this is in your mind and you're making it up. That's not what I'm saying. But because Chinese medicine links it to your mind, which is your Shen, right? It's your consciousness. So it's not like in your mind, like you're thinking you're creating these things yourself. But it means that if that's the cause of it, well, not so much the cause, but that it's disturbing that aspect, then that aspect could fix it. So possibly meditation or self-hypnosis could help. Now, it's just in the same way that it could help with pain, right, to stopping the itch. Now, if it's so bad, I'm sure you've tried some of those things, but I just recently found an app. It's a free app. It's called Reverie, and Reveri. Looks like, oh, there we go. It looks like that when you get it, and you've got these little self-hypnosis exercises there. Not sponsored by that app or anything like that. Just found it. I found it through Andrew Huberman's podcast, which is a science guy. Really love his stuff. And that is like a, it's a less woo-woo meditational sort of thing, I guess. Completely, it's not woo-woo. So if you're interested in it, but you think, I don't want something, transcendental meditation, some weird thing, you could try that. And certainly these kinds of exercises can help. I use them for focusing. So, when you're working all day and you're like thinking, oh, just keep powering through, and you know that you're losing focus on what you're doing, then I sometimes use those apps to just like lie down or sit there in your chair and just have 10 minutes or even 5 minutes of doing like a little exercise, and then that helps you bring your focus back. But you can use them for pain. Another thing that you could try, which is used for pain, and I wonder whether this might help for itching, is called binaural beats. Don't know if you've heard of that. I've used binaural beats myself for extreme pain, where you're just like, oh, I can't stop this pain, and I just need to like get through it, sort of thing. Like dental pain or something like that, where you know what the cause is, and you're waiting to get a tooth taken out. It's like, this is insane. I don't think I can live like this. And you like, let's say you don't want to take any more painkillers or something like that. So binaural beats can really help with pain. And I wonder whether there are some frequencies. So you have to have headphones on because there's different ones coming in different ears. It's quite peaceful and relaxing. It's quite calm. So that's another possibility. So with herbal medicine, they're generally going to look at the strategy, or with acupuncture, the lungs connect to the skin, and also blood tonifies the skin. So when you have a skin condition, you have a lack of blood nourishing the skin, and then the skin's like become, I can write those things down for you as well if I forgot what I said anyway. Might have to go back on the stream. So your lungs relate to your skin, and blood relates to your skin. So over time, if you've had a skin problem for a long time, then you need to be thinking about tonifying blood. And the best way to do that is with foods, right? So if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, it's harder, and not. I don't want to offend any vegetarians or vegans again for the 5th time on this channel. No, but that could be something. Now, if your skin's all flared up, there's some things that could, like, let's say, unflare it, that are just cooling types of herbs that you wouldn't want to stay on forever. That could work. It's a bit of a paradoxical thing sometimes with let's say, I was just thinking of another strategy you could use for the acupuncture. Is the eczema on one particular part of your body, or is it, you don't have to say if it's too personal, but is it particularly on a certain area, like always on your arms or always on your legs, or does it just come up randomly in different random spots? There could be a different strategy. Mainly the hands. Okay, so there's strategies in Chinese medicine that's like, so if it is on your hands and these points are hurting you to press them, be careful about that. But then you can think about the opposite of those areas. So your hands are opposite your feet. Your elbows are opposite your knees. And depending on what channels it's on, there's like opposite channels that treat it. So there's a technique in acupuncture called Dr. Tan. I'm writing this down for you, Dr. Tan Balance Method. And there's a book that he's got called, now I wouldn't, unless you're an acupuncturist, you don't need to go out and purchase this book, but he's got a book called Acupuncture 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you can find like a PDF version of it online or something like that. And that book explains how acupuncturists would use acupuncture to basically, let's say you've got a channel problem here, they're going to use the balancing channel. So there's 3 channels. There's 5 actually, but the 4 and 5 ones often are the same, work out the same as the 1, 2, 3. So that's why he's called it 1, 2, 3. So what that means, so let's say it's your large intestine channel. One of the opposite channels of that is your lung channel. And so you would never, with the acupuncture, Dr. Tan method, the balance method, you would never needle, as an acupuncturist, the affected side. You always needle the opposite side, the unaffected side. Now, if it's both hands, then you'd be thinking about the feet. So, for instance, if it is the lung channel, that's the lung channel. They're one of the channels that balances the lung channel is your spleen channel. And if you look up these channels, if you're not sure where they are, you can just Google them. You can just Google those points that I told you, pericardium 6, pericardium 5, or pericardium 8, or whatever. And it'll come up with photos, and sometimes there's even videos of how to find those points and things like that. So very useful, right? It's because there's so many people using this system of Chinese medicine, it's easy to find that information without needing to own lots of textbooks. So that's a couple of strategies. Now, what I was saying before about the herbs is you could try some of the cooling method herbs. I wouldn't stay on these for a long time because they can damage your gut in terms of not as strongly as like antibiotics or something, but they can make you they can cool you down too much. So your body's mostly yang. It needs that yang, that life force there. And if you take too much cooling stuff, then it's gonna cool you down too much. So things like chrysanthemum tea, another herb called Jinyin-hua. Chrysanthemum's really easy to get hold of. Zhuhua. Another one called Jinyin-hua. Oops. Could also be used. Jinyin-hua, like its name's also honeysuckle, but don't be fooled. It doesn't taste like honey. It's a bit of a bitter herb. So sometimes having teas out of those things can be refreshing and can help with some of that clearing the heat. So in TCM, they're going to call it like heatiness, like, clearing the heat. I've done my eyes a bit too purpley today. I'm just looking at myself in the camera. I think I bought some new makeup at Christmas and I've just kind of gone for the black eye look. It's a bit too much. I don't have a black eye. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about, I'm happy to talk about the eczema situation. I think so the other aspect would be then blood tonification. And in classical Chinese herbs, it depends on what your pulse is, but often we actually use a very warming herbs to like warm the blood, and that then makes the blood stronger, which then makes the skin strong, and then that repels the propensity to get the eczema, right? So all illness, particularly with your skin, because your skin is the barrier to the outside environment, is an inability of your body to cope with the outside environment. So either you're putting an environment in your body that's making it disharmonious, or you're exposed to an extreme place, right? Like if you're in the UK, it's probably freezing there. And that freezing cold continuously on your skin kind of, is going to wear away at it, like cool it down. Now, I mean, people get eczema in Australia as well. It's not like it's only in cold places, but that has an effect on you over time. And then, like your diet or things that's happened as a kid. So, these sort of things that have been there a long time can take a long time to treat. But they can also be very well, let's say, maintained or respond good to like your self-treatment things that you do to keep things in check. And don't think that that's not helping, because sometimes when you stop doing that, you won't know until you stop doing it that, oh shit, all these symptoms come back. Yeah. So if other people have a question, you can certainly ask a question on the stream. What I will just keep going back to, if we don't have other questions, is this one here about your New Year's goals and different personality types. And yeah, people can feel free to ask a question. Hello from California, Jay Cho. Awesome. What's it like over there? I hope you're okay. I don't hear. I think it's also the same as in Australia. Like people from overseas say, "Oh, I've heard a lot of things about." We're not going to talk about that on this stream, but like I've heard a lot of bad things about Australia, and then I'm like, I've heard that California's not doing so well either. But that's one of the places in the world that I would. I'm okay so far. Yeah, good. Thanks, Veronica. That's one of the places I've always wanted to go to, and so I hope that I hope that I still can one day. Yeah. So let's talk about personality types, right? And setting your New Year's goals. So let's say you're a wood type. You probably don't need to watch this video because you're probably just thinking, oh, I've already got my goals, or maybe you are and you're thinking, oh, Marie might have some extra secrets for me, because that's the type that I am. So I enjoy watching people talk about making goals and make goals and that kind of stuff, right? So determining the type of person that you are can take quite a lot of time as well. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff and you think, oh, I'm not really sure what type I am, don't be disgruntled or dismayed or whatever. Like, it takes time. It's the same as if you're into Myers-Briggs or something like that. Like, you don't just do one personality test and go, oh, I know who I am. It can sometimes take a bit of time. And even in Myers-Briggs, they have practitioners of it that are like, will be able to help you work that out. But sometimes they can't even tell you definitively, right, that this is exactly who you are. So anyway, if you're interested in this stuff and you don't know where to start, you can start on the channel that work with the videos I made. So I made some videos about what are the different types, and then I made 5 videos about how to have a great new year with those types. And so those were talking about like what could be the possible detriments of those types, and how to kind of combat those detriments, right? So every personality types have good and bad aspects of it. And then you have to think about, well, what season am I in and what's that season doing to me? So what I really want to say on this channel is, like, if you're in the US or the UK or anywhere else except for Australia, basically, and it's not summer for you, then it's winter. It's natural. It's normal to feel the sense of hibernation. It's not normal to feel like, whoo, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do all these things. Now, you might know that you want to do those things, but it's not natural to have the momentum to do all that stuff and to change all those things. So if you feel like, oh, look, I want this year to be different, and look, then on top of all that, the craziness of the world, what's going on with the world is another thing. And that can make you then think, well, there's no point in making any goals because, I'm just at the mercy of whatever the government's control tells us we can or can't do or whatever, right? But these might be things that are like you can control. So if you're thinking like that, you're thinking, oh, I feel like a bit disappointed or a bit, I don't want to be at the mercy of just whatever happens. Well, think about the things you can control and think about the things you want to change and the things that you would want to be changing anyway, right? So it might not be like, like for business, it's hard to make a decision right now because you don't know what's going to happen with these kinds of restrictions and things like that. But let's say for your own self, for your health, like there's never been a better time to be even more healthy than now, right? So it's good to kind of be thinking like that and to be thinking, well, what are the things that you like? This is how I think. Like at the end of this year, at the end of 2022, what do I want to be different? What do I want to change? What do I want to, who do I want to be? What kinds of things in my life am I willing to change or wanting to change, wanting to give up to see, those changes happen. So, yeah, and the other thing is that sometimes acupressure and acupuncture can help you with these things too. I was talking to a lady, a practitioner on my channel who does this thing called alchemy with Chinese medicine or something like that. Alchemaic Chinese medicine. I can't work out how to pronounce it, but it's basically the practice of alchemy, which is utilizing your like knowing your 5-element personality type and then transcending that element type. So becoming a sage, like knowing who you are as a person and then saying, well, okay, knowing who I am and then can I transcend that? And that's a journey kind of in itself, right? To kind of do that and facing the fears and the demons and the things that kind of come up against you because of those types, right? So keeping this on the track of like New Year's, right? So what I'm getting at is don't beat yourself up if you're in winter and you don't feel the momentum and you feel like, oh, I should feel better about it. Well, no, not necessarily, right? So when I try to start my New Year stuff, not my New Year's goals, but when I try to start the biggest projects, is the best time is springtime. Right, the biggest, newest, different things. You're going with the season, especially if you want to make a big change. And then, like summer is generally things are easier. Now it depends on where you live and how hot it can get, but in general, things are a little bit easier because the yang of the season is on the surface, right? And so, there's a better flow. Whereas in winter, it's a season of contraction and it's a season of consolidation. And so, it's good to kind of have that like reminiscence, remembrance. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say about that. So, because I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure to think, oh, I need to be the same in every season, and you don't, right? So I'm writing a book at the moment about the self-help aspects of Chinese medicine and basically using that book as the basis for my course that I'm running. And I was thinking about these ideas this week, like, there's a pressure in society for us to just be the same no matter what, like be the same no matter what seasons are happening. We shouldn't be the same. Like we don't need to sleep the same amount of time. We don't need to. You can get a copy when I've written it. I have to finish writing it first, but you can get a free copy of my first chapter. Thank you for your support, Veronica. I haven't finished it yet, but I will be. That's my New Year's goal is to finish the book. But so this idea of like this pressure in society, right, to be the same in every season. And I think maybe something that pandemics helped people realize is, hey, just by stopping, right, just by going, right, stop this train. Like sometimes I felt like that. I felt like this is a crazy train. I mean, are we ever going to get off this train? Like this is this constant pressure because you're in this environment of like everyone's doing things and going go, 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 go. And if you don't go, go, go at that same level, or even more than that, then you feel like you're being left behind. So, you know, sometimes you do need to just stop and go, right, what's important? Like, what is the most, why am I doing all this? Like, honestly, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, why am I mean, I love doing what I do. I don't want to stop doing it. But you sometimes do have to stop and ask yourself that and say, right, like, what is the purpose of this? Because if in the process of doing all the stuff that you're doing, you're actually not getting the goal that you thought you were getting, right? So most people go to work to get money. They get money so that they can buy the things they need to live. Yeah. And buy the things that they think they need to live, or the things they want, and to get the life that they want. But in the process of getting all that stuff, they just have no energy left to even enjoy those things sometimes. Or it becomes an empty trap where then I need to work more and more because these things brought me this joy when I first purchased them, but that wore off after, it's like a kid that gets too many toys on Christmas and then they don't know what to, they just, the shine wears off, right? And we like that too sometimes, and you're back on that treadmill keeping on going. So it's good to have an idea of seasons in your life and to be prepared for spring, because you don't want to waste the spring of whenever your spring comes, because that is the best season to do these new things. So if you've got ideas that you think, I'd love to do this, I want to change the world, you're actually in a better position if you're on the other side of the world, because your spring's coming, right? Sooner. My spring's going to be in September next year. And then you're using that momentum, right? It's like this idea of like you're coming out of the hibernation of winter into this new birth and how do you know the spring is coming? Well, you're looking at the trees, you're looking at the environment. I just did an interview on the channel with Tyler Rowe, and he is I want to say an expert on like seasonal changes and things like that. He practices a very unique aspect of Chinese medicine called Wu Yun Liu Qi. It's always a tongue twister for me. So, Icky Possum, you mean the alchemy person, the alchemy podcast? Inspired Action, the podcast called. I'll just put that in the thing. And then you can find all the details from there. But yes, so this Wu Yun Liu Qi is the study of the seasons and how these seasonal changes. Oh, this is good. I'm glad it's serendipitous for you. And I love your YouTube name. It's a great one. So I can't forget what I was saying. The seasonal, Tyler's podcast. So he was talking in more detail about those 4 seasons and how to just be more healthy in a pragmatic, physical way, right? You can get sick in seasons because you don't do certain things. And that's a big thing, right? So the first thing to think of is like, don't put the same pressure on yourself in every season. Like I would put more pressure on myself in spring than in any other season to do new things, to get the goals done, to get that stuff done, to push yourself more, right? And it's normal to have, like, think about the day. You have like the yang time of the day, you have the yin time of the day. And if you do what's correct in each season in the Neijing, it says then you suit the following season, which is really interesting, right? So it talks about people that hate the season, people that say, I don't like this season. I'm sure you have friends that say, oh, I hate winter, it's so cold. And I have friends that, they also, nobody likes to be in 100 degrees heat, but, oh, I hate summer, I hate it. Like, it just is, right? You can't change the summer with your hate or your dislike of it. You can't. So it's okay not to be loving each season, I guess, but don't hate the season. Don't hate it. And you can do, you might not thrive in each season, but each season has its purpose for you. right? So that you are, think about yourself as a plant, right? You have this strong, like you can grow into a strong plant. Now, not every plant gives fruit in every season. It's not giving fruit in every time. And this is something that's part of ancient wisdom, not just from Chinese medicine, but like these are biblical principles. These are things that were talked about, by the Greek mythology, Greek ancient, they've come into a lot of, what do you call it? Like character, like Jungian psychology and these kinds of things, right? Like they're part of this idea of, because it's part of nature. You look at nature, and if you understand, well, that's what it's doing, like that's teaching us how we should behave, right? And so if you're going against nature, that can be the start of illness. It is the start of illness. So I think you need to think about for yourself, like if you want to have a healthy 2022, sort of do an inventory on yourself at the start and think, am I in tune with the season? Now, that's what I was thinking about in this book that I'm writing. So at the end of each chapter, I'm making like a little self-help kind of checklist, not a lot of questions. The first chapter's only got 2 or 3 questions. So if people want to get a copy of that, it was just, I'll just see if I can find it, the link. I am giving this away to people as a thank you for getting to 5,000 subscribers. Put that in the link. So you can go on here. You'll connect with me by email by doing this. And that way, if something happens to my YouTube channel, not that it will, but if it does, then you can still connect with me through that. And yeah, so hopefully that's coming up. It just says there's an error, but I think the link's there. So you can jump on that link and you can get the first chapter for free. So the first chapter is about yin and yang. And then we're going to talk about in the book the 5 elements and that kind of stuff. Now, I'm teaching a course on this stuff. So if you're interested in the course, you can click on the link at that free book chapter and you can find out about the course. And I'll also send you an email about the course. So I'm giving away 3 placements in one of my courses. So with the courses, this is what I've been spending all my time on the last 3 weeks. I've been thinking about what do I really want to do for this year, for 2022. How am I going to give back to society and also just use the knowledge that I have and be able to help more people? Because I love doing these kinds of things. I like doing these streams. What I find is that it's not like hundreds of people are on the streams necessarily, but the people that are here are really engaged and really interested. And that makes me happy because it means it's helping people and that people are interested. This is a niche market, let's say. there's less people, but the people who are here are highly interested and engaged and like to ask their questions and stuff like that. So the course is going to, so there's a few different options. I've got some courses that are just a one-day, one-off one, so like a 3-hour thing. And some of the courses are, one of the course is a 1-year program. Oh, good, Icky Possum. It's a great name. So yeah, you can enroll in the course if you're interested in enrolling in it. By getting the free ebook, you'll go in the draw to win one of the first 5-week course that I'm doing, which is talking about self-care using the 5 elements. So the first week we talk about yin and yang. Next week we talk about the different elements, like the cycles of the elements. And then the week after that, we start talking about what are the organs relating to those 5 elements and how can they go out of balance, but also how can we keep them in balance. So the focus of all the courses, which this hasn't really been done before, it's not to teach you to be a practitioner for like hundreds of other people, but it's bringing it back to you and yourself and thinking, am I in harmony with nature? Am I in harmony? Is my liver good? Is my spleen good? And often this is what Chinese medicine practitioners as students are doing, right? I remember being in the classes thinking that myself, like you learn about it, you learn about these things, and then you go home and you think, oh, I might not be sleeping well and if I don't sleep well, like that's going to affect this. Now you kind of understand what that does affect. And that makes you want to be more healthy because if you know what it does, then it makes you want to do it, rather than just someone saying, hey, you need to quit smoking because it's bad for you. Whereas if you come up with it yourself and you think, I actually need to change this because this is what it's doing to me if I don't change it. Or in the positive, like if I do change this other thing, I think of all the benefits I'm going to get out of it, then you generally do it, right? You don't need necessarily someone telling you what to do. You can tell yourself what to do, be empowered. And that's why I want to make this course about self-empowerment. And also to think, look, we're entering into a time where we just don't know what's going to happen with society in terms of, a lot of places, their medical systems are already in a crisis. And it's becoming really expensive to see practitioners. And I'm not saying that this course is going to replace your ability. If you needed a surgery, you're still going to need surgery. You can't replace that. But what this is going to do is hopefully lessen over time your need to have these medical interventions, because you're going to be able to treat this stuff before it even becomes something that's an illness in you. Yep. So that's it. Does anyone have any other questions that they wanted to talk about? I can talk a little bit more about the different elements and the aspects of those elements in terms of goal setting and things like that. If people want that, just having my morning coffee. What would people like to hear? Maybe nothing. Maybe finish. It might be night time for you, sleepy time. Okay, so we'll go through a couple of different elements. So we'll start with I'll start with fire, because I've already talked about wood, and we'll come back to wood if we need to. So I'm going to be using this book here, and I'm just going to go through some of the aspects of each element and talk about how that relates to your goals and to your going into these new things, right? So the heart and Sanjiao relates to fire, of the organs. So a fire element person tends to be a very warm and bubbly person, right? Like very soft. So fire, kind of just think about, it's soft and it's flowing. Actually, sometimes when you think of fire, you think, oh, it's a blazing, out of control fire, but it can be that, but in its really true nature, it's warm. People like to come to a fire, like they feel good around a fire. They feel relaxed and peaceful. And these people are generally good with other people, right? So if you're a fire element type of person, it might help you to have other people around you to help you do your goals. You're probably not going to be able to set good goals necessarily by yourself. You're less likely to be an independent person. You're more likely to be part of a community, right? And not that you're a communist because you're a fire type, but you tend to like people. You're a people person, and that helps you. That energizes you. So you could use the energy of other people to help you to get in the mood to do your goal setting, or like even being in an environment where there are people there. Like you're going to feel energized in a cafe where you go there and you're like, oh, everybody knows me here, and I can have a bit of a chat to Johnny, who gives me my coffee. How's he going? Oh, what's happened with your breakup? Like you actually enjoy that sort of interaction, and you don't find that as a distraction. That might then put you in the mood to kind of think about your goals. So maybe go down to a cafe where people know you or something like that, or hang out with some friends. Maybe ask some people that know you, what do you think I could improve about myself? Maybe if you're really feeling a bit vulnerable, that kind of thing. So you tend to be soft and flowing and, non-confrontal maybe in a general sense, right? So this is talking about if you're in balance now. So you can be an out of balance fire type, or any type. You can be an out of balance person. But the downsides kind of this type can sometimes be you like pleasure, and you're maybe less willing to forego the pleasure for a greater purpose in life, and you might not then achieve your real purpose or the real things you want to go get to. It's so like just think about this, mate. It doesn't have to be necessarily like super altruistic, but if let's say you want to buy a house, and you know that it's going to cost you to buy the house, right? But you think, look, in 10 years' time, I don't want to be renting a house anymore. Me and my partner don't want to rent a house, or me personally, I don't want to rent a house. So but at the same time, if you're a fire type, it might be really hard for you to forego the pleasure that you'll get from going out every weekend, spending that money, or just having that extra money to buy the things that you love, and I want to buy new outfits and that kind of stuff. Go to the spa, have good times. Like fire types of people, they like to be touched, they like to be pampered and all that sort of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with any of these things, but that could be a detriment of it. And so that might stop that person from actually achieving their goals, because of not all their goals, but achieving that goal of buying a house, because they might find it really hard. So acknowledging that is the step to that, and going, okay, I know this is going to be hard. I know this is going to be, but putting that in, thinking about, well, in 5 years' time, think of all the pleasure I'm going to have from this beautiful home that I'm going to own. And also not having this detriment of I have to move house all the time, or, not having the freedom that I want, or whatever the reason is you want to buy the house. The saving the money, right? In 5-10 years' time or 20 years' time, you think, what kind of life am I going to have? So if that's what you want to do, obviously not everyone wants to buy a home. Not saying you have to buy a home. That's that. Awesome. Icky Possum. I appreciate the inadvertent shout out. And I just signed up. I look forward to the course. Awesome. I look forward to seeing you in the course. That's fantastic. So yeah, if you've signed up to the ebook and you're not sure how to get the rest of the course, we can send that to you. But there's I'll put the link here for all the courses, and then you can decide what you kind of want to do. Because I started off with, I've got this 1 year program, right? This is the ultimate thing. But then I realized, look, not everyone wants to spend a year of their life learning Chinese medicine. So it's once a week for a year, not for the whole year, but 3 lots of 12 weeks. But then I've broken that up into some smaller courses. And if you do one of the smaller ones and then you think, oh, I'd like to do the whole course, whatever you've paid off the smaller course, if it's part of that bigger one, which it probably is at the moment, then you can get that reimbursed to you off of the big one. Anyway, so fire type. So that's the fire type. Now, the fire types of people can also go in a bit of a frenzy and get agitated easily. Like, think about fire, right? It can just blaze out of control by itself. And so, like, that would be an out of balance kind of person. And because they have this tendency to pleasure, these types of people it's hard. They're more likely to get addictions, and it's also harder to quit the addictions. Which makes sense, right? People who are addicted always find it hard to quit. But that's why, because if you're a fire type, I think Russell Brand is probably one of these types, right? So I think I look at Russell Brand and I think he's very social type. He seems to be, from watching, I'm going to watch a lot of his stuff. He seems like he would probably be more like a fire type. And it makes sense that you would have a struggle with addiction. And like that you would get addicted is a fire type of thing, but then to find it hard to get out of the addiction is also hard, right? So that's the fire type. Okay, the earth type. So earth types are a lot more like they're known as a peacemaker type of person. So they're very a lot more steady as she goes kind of thing. They don't like to have a bit of conflict. They're sort of very good at like intention and being intentful, let's say, like remembering things, attention to detail. So out of balance maybe could be a bit of an OCD sort of situation going on, but in a good sense, that attention to detail can bring a lot of good things in life, and certainly to community. So you want to think about all of us have these aspects in our life as well. But if you had 5 different elements in a room, they're all going to bring something great to that collective project, let's say, if there was something like that, or that collective family, that community. So what does a earth element sort of person bring to that, right? They might combat another person's type to go, oh, I just want to go off on this idea that's so great, and I've got all this passion and enthusiasm for it. But the earth type's like, well, what about this? What about this? What about that? Like, and that's good, because you don't want someone to go, oh, wow, imagine if we built an amazing bridge and it was just so colorful and peaceful and beautiful and it was good for the world. And then this person's like, hang on, the structural integrity of that bridge won't hold any people up because you've made it out of marshmallows. Like, that's a kind of earth types of people. Now, what's the downside of that is too much detail. So if you're an earth type and you're trying to make your New Year's goals, you might be like caught up in the details of it rather than it being a broad. So you tend to not go for the broad things, and you might get so bogged down on the details that you might never get started on the actual thing you wanted to do, which is a shame. So that's one of those things. And that's probably the best thing I could advise for the earth people, right? So the details are important, yeah, but they don't all have to be done right now. So if you're making your goals, you want to go, you don't have to make 100 goals, 5 goals, 3 goals, whatever, 1 goal. You don't have to get caught up on all the details of everything of how's this going to play out, right? So, especially if you're an out of balance earth person, you might be getting really detailed on, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow morning? Like first thing tomorrow. Like they're not kind of the types of people that are used to living whimsically, living in the moment as much as other types. Also, earth types of people can be a bit resistant to change. So if that's the case, then there's a few things you could do. You could invite the help of another type of person who might help you with that. You might create some accountability, and all this works for every types of goals people as well. Like if you tell someone else about it, you're more likely to stick with it than if you just keep it to yourself. Yeah, because no one will know. It's like, and this is where Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, NA, and all those things work, because they have, like if you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm going to have a drink, or I feel like I'm going to do something, then I'm just reading someone's comment and making me laugh. And if you don't tell anyone else about it, then no one will know when you want to, and then you just relapse. So that can help, right? A bit of accountability. But also maybe playing out the situations in your mind before they've happened, not in too much detail, because earth people tend to get caught up in their minds a bit too much, right? Like, oh, what will happen there with this and what will happen with that? But there's an idea anything you imagine, like powerfully imagine, this is visualization, it's as if you've actually done it, right? So one of the ways to overcome difficulty is to powerfully imagine something's happened. And then it's like as if you've done it. So you're getting the benefit in your body of like, oh, well, I've overcome this fear. I've done that, right? So you could kind of imagine these change situations, maybe visualizing yourself at the other side of the change, being positive, proactive in that, like expecting that it's going to be difficult to change. Like that's what, whereas let's say the fire type wants to make a change because they love the pleasure, they're going to be feeling like, oh, this isn't pleasurable to me. It's the lack of pleasure that they are experiencing with it. Whereas the earth person's like, this is just, they don't like the change in the routine. They like things to be the same. And this is where, like in an extreme case, an OCD person, I'm not saying earth people are OCD, they're not, but in an out of balance, it can become that, right, where you've got an actual sort of mental illness. His name is Brand for a reason. Yeah, it is. I think these comments are a little bit delayed or something, maybe if that's if that's happening. That's why. Anyway, so earth people have difficulty with that, right? And just changing your routine might be really hard. So that's something to think about. All right, let's talk about metal. So metal types are also really good at goal setting. They tend to be a lot more staunch types of people, militant types of people. They love structure. They love a good plan. They love a good document. So they might have their goals set out in like a nice Excel spreadsheet or something like that. Be good. They're good at setting out the structure of doing it. It's probably more the actual doing of it, which might be hard. And possibly the change. So earth and metal have similarity in terms of that resistancy to change, because metal people really love structure and the regimentedness of things. So they do well in the army and the military and those kinds of things. Methodical, they really respecting, honor, that kind of stuff. They like neatness and calmness. So if these changes, and it's unlikely they're going to want to make those changes, but they're not really that open to change as other types are. You wish you were a metal person. No, I don't think you do. No one wants to wish they're something else. But if you follow the alchemic idea, what they say is, right, you understand your personality type or your element type, and then you transcend that type. So you become all the elements. Can you become all of those elements? And that's becoming a sage, right? So we all have those elements within us. And it's almost like, when people say strengths and weaknesses, I sort of think of it like this. So something that's a weakness, you can achieve results in that weakness, but it's harder. It's harder to work on it. It's an effort to work on it. It's purposeful. It's like, you're digging in. It's, whereas if you're working on a strength, it's like you love it and you enjoy doing it. Now, I'm not really sure whether that's the right thing to do or not, but that's what alchemy talks about. It's like, you've got to dig in to do the hard stuff and enjoy almost. But then you get the benefit of being all these types. Now, we all have those types within us, even if you're not that type, right? You do have the abilities of those types within us somewhere. Anyway, so metal people like definition, discipline, structure, right? So they might be, it might be harder to escape the rigidity of life. Should some calamity happen to them or some change happen to them, they find it harder to deal with that. And I think that's a big part of resilience in life. So if you are a metal person, or if you have a kid that's like a metal type of a kid, it's good to provide. Well, I think it is. I'm not a parent, but I'm an auntie, and one of my nephews, he's a little bit like this, and you can see that he likes structure. You can see that he likes things to be the same, but he's also willing to do new things, right? He's not rigid and OCD or something like that, but you can see a little bit of that in him. Now, it depends which way he's going to be nurtured into that, right? And at what point, when do you say to a kid, like, hey, we're doing this new thing even though you don't want to do it because you're going to like it at the end of it, sort of thing. Like, you might like it, but you won't know if you don't like it or do like it unless you do it, right? So you kind of got to do that to yourself as an adult sometimes and say, let me just have a new opportunity. So I think for metal people, if you want to change in your life, like you might just love your life and you think, I don't need to make any goals because I love everything the same. And I want 2023 to be the same as 2022 and, all the same, right? But what if life has changed around you? And these types of people probably feel it's probably harder. The pandemic has probably been a lot harder on the metal and earth types, I would say, because they wouldn't like that. Now, you might have settled into a routine already around those things. So you're like, I heard someone today say that they knew, this was on another podcast, they were saying, they knew a friend who was wishing for another lockdown, right? Now, why would you do that? Because you become used to it, and that has become your new routine, and you want that same routine, right? That makes you feel safe. That makes you feel secure. So metal types of people like the safety and security of routine and discipline and the same things, right? And so they actually love governance. They're these people that are like, govern me harder, daddy. Like they love it. They love to be regimented and restricted in a way because it's beneficial to them, right? They feel that those rules are keeping them safe. And I'm not talking about pandemic at all, specifically. I mean, you can also relate it to that, but they like those things. Like these are probably the Karens of society that feel that those rules are keeping people safe. And when people break those rules, then, and this might be an out of balance metal or earth kind of element people, but particularly metal people. Anyway, so, they feel that they're doing the right thing like these people are very society orientated. They often go to jobs like politics or like community leaders, teachers, or things like that, and often like metal people can be very good for the society. I'm not saying they're bad or anything. Like they can be really useful and needed. Like we need those people. But what could be good if you're a metal person watching this stream, you think, oh no, I don't want to be a metal person. No, if you are a metal person, you think there's a bit of that in me. You could just give yourself an opportunity to do something new before you make up your goals, right? Experience something, like put yourself in a position. It's going to feel awkward. It's not going to feel great straight away, but you might actually enjoy something. You might find something different. It doesn't have to be something crazy like I'm going to go climb Mount Everest or something. It might be like I'm going to enroll in an art class. Or I'm going to do something a little bit different. So that's metal, right? So being aware of not being too formal, not being too rigid. That's allowing some flow to be in there. But also your strength is that you are rigid and you probably just going to stick to those things. You're going to be a stickler for that. You might need some help from like wood or fire to like soften the blows of the people around you that might come into like so think about someone that makes a decision and they just basically like, I'm going to do this no matter what, no matter how this affects everyone else around me, because this is the right thing. They believe it's the right thing. And they're very regimented and they can just plow through that. That can sometimes not be great for a metal person because it might backfire on them. People might not like you. People might find you hard to deal with, abrasive, that kind of stuff. So that could be something to think about, depending on what the goal is and how it's affecting everybody else in the world, in your world. All right, water types. So obviously water's flowing, it's cool. It's another soft kind of element. And water people tend to be, quite like reflective and imaginative. And they can be, some of the, more creative types of people as well. So coming up with ideas and goals might not be hard for you, like as in ideas of things you want to do, fantasizing about that. Oh, wouldn't it be great to do this? Wouldn't it be great to do that? Like thinking of those things, being open, that's not a problem for water people. But you also like really benefit from that introspective time. So very different to a fire person. A fire person likes being around other people. They're like water's a flow and a softness, and so is fire. But fire likes people, whereas water likes itself. Like water likes to be by itself in its own, with its own community of one. Like it's an introvert, right? Mostly. So can get caught up too much in their own little world, possibly. Could be part of it. They could be isolated and might be a bit lonely and find it hard. So let's say you're a water type of person, you think, I want to find a love in 2022. It's going to be really challenging. Like you might want that, but how do you go about getting it? Might be really, you might not know. And you might not be good at getting the strategy of how to do that. You just kind of have an idea. Now, this is where what happens is if you have an idea and you might be good at getting the idea, there's other people that are good at helping you implement that. So you might need to go to a metal person and say, help me with a strategy. Metal people are great with the strategies. Maybe a fire person might help you with some communication skills to help talk to other people. Like if you want to meet the love of your life or a potential person or just make new friends, and you're a very introverted metal person, then you might not know the skills of how to talk to people. You might find that very difficult. It's not bad on you. It's just who you are. So fire people can help you, and they'd be very willing to help you because that's what they love doing, and they love talking. They would probably feel like they're, helping the world by helping you do that. So metal people can have some troubles with trusting, and like they don't trust the government. They don't trust institutional things. They're a bit more skeptical of those things. But they can also be prone to like being hypochondriacs and like just living in their own place, in their own world. So they might need some help from other people. If you're a metal person, you'd probably have to invite that help because they're not going to easily accept help, from other people. Now, understanding these types kind of helps us understand, well, why is it hard sometimes for me to interact with other types? Like, why is my type, like if you're a fire type and, your partner's a metal type, let's say, for instance, you're like, why do they find it difficult when I come to them? Or maybe your brother or your sister or something like that, Anyway, so loneliness and isolation can be a problem for metal types of people. That's why I've mentioned finding the love of your life, because often these are the people that have left it till they're much later in life to find a partner, because it's not a priority for them. It's not a need for them. Whereas a fire type of person, that's a need. They would have solved that need early on in life and maybe had several relationships, lots of relationships, but they wouldn't be a person that could go a long period of time without relationship, like sexual relationship or companion relationship, let's say. Whereas a metal type of person could probably very easily live on an island quite comfortably by themselves for an extended period of time. And they do need people for sure, but they don't have to have that for all of their life, let's say. So emotional stuff could be hard. Like it's harder to tap into emotions. So if that's something you want to work on in the new year, or something that you want to help, or you need help within your goals, then doing things that put you in that place of being a little bit vulnerable might help. So be careful about that, because if you're new at experiencing emotions, you don't want to open that door and not have a way of dealing with it. You could see a counselor or a professional or something like that, but you could just like open yourself up to, I'm going to watch some movies that make me feel something that I wasn't expecting to feel. Maybe I'm going to watch some sad movies. I'm going to listen to some music that's emotive. I'm going to allow myself some time to feel these things, to be in touch with your feelings. You don't have to do that, but those things may help you. The benefits of metal people are they tend to be very good at planning and scheming and articulating, what they want. And they can be very good at doing that. They can be very good at being anonymous and just maintaining their anonymity in life and getting on with the job and getting on with things. They don't necessarily need like credit and, pats on backs and people dancing around them, showing them how great they are. They just know that they're great and they can get on with their stuff. So hopefully that's helped you a little bit. Let's talk about wood, because I talked a bit about wood at the start, but we didn't sort of go into the details of wood. So I think out of all the types, probably your metal and your wood types are the easiest to make goals. Like it's probably goal making comes naturally to those people. And wood types of people like challenges and doing stuff, but the detriment of doing that is they can sometimes take on a lot of stuff or do things willy-nilly, like as in not willy-nilly, but do things without the proper plan. So unlike the methodical types that are going to go, right, let me plan everything out. So earth types might spend way too much time planning and never get anything done. Wood types can just do things without the plan. Without the details, or let me just press go. Whoa, what's going to happen? Let's see. And they like that adventure. They like being on the edge. So if it's out of balance, it could be a little bit too much of that sort of stuff. They tend to not so much like they can get involved in addictional stuff, not as much as in a different way to fire people. So not all types could become addicted, but out of all of the types, probably wood and fire types are the most common. What fire types like the pleasure of the experience, right? Let me experience this thing, like let me go on this trip, let me have this experience, right? Experiential, or we're doing this because we're doing it with other people and it's part of the social thing. Whereas with wood types, they sometimes need this stuff because they say, oh, they don't need it, but they say they need it. They need it to keep going. I need my 10 coffees a day so that I can be as productive as possible and get all my stuff done, right? I used to be a little bit like this. Like I sometimes would have 8 coffees a day when I was like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, that kind of thing. Up till I was about 27, I used to have a lot of coffees a day and still go to bed. Like I'd just drink it. I didn't drink much alcohol then. I used to just drink coffee all the time. I'd drink a coffee and go to sleep. No problem sleeping. But what can happen then as your body changes or, your detriment happens, they then need stimulants and sedatives to function, right? So some people can get into the habit of like, well, I need to stimulate. I can't slow down. I can't stop my brain. I can't stop this train from keeping on going. So I need something to relax me. It could be alcohol. It could be sleeping pills. It could be marijuana. It could be whatever at nighttime. And then they wake up in the morning. They don't feel good because they've had this other stuff at night sometimes, or just because they feel like I want this pep up. And so they're revving up on caffeine or stimulants in the day. And that can become a detriment for wood types. So maybe if that's you and you're thinking, oh, I need to change my ways this year, then, addictions could be part of the thing for you to work on. Now, I think even though addictions can happen with wood people like this, actually it's hard. It's less hard to stop them than like you're more in a position of being able to act on it and change it than a fire type of person. I think it's just from my opinion, my observations. So what's the good thing about wood types is they do have a lot of creativity, a lot of expansiveness, that growth, like they can see into the future, and like life planning is a big part of wood. So if wood's healthy, it likes that planning. It likes to think about the future and 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like that would be a big part of it. Whereas if you're a wood person, you don't have that, that can be, you can feel very frustrated and not good about that. So you might need to have your 5-year plan or your 10-year plan rather than just thinking, oh, I can only, year to year is, not long enough for you maybe. So other things, so challenges and novelty, getting new skills are big things for wood people, right? But I think the downside for that could be like, what's the point of it? Like, it's, I'm not saying don't do it, but it's got to be towards like, is your life leading you towards something that you want to be leading yourself towards? Or are you just like, oh, shiny cookie here, shiny thing there. Oh, look at that. That looks interesting. Because wood people can do a lot of stuff. They can basically do anything in a way, like they can get things done. And if they put their mind to it, I can get this done. But it comes down to, well, what do you want to do? Like, what do you really want to get done, right? So it can be prone to having like a bit of, what do you call it? Shiny object syndrome. If they think of that, oh, this or that, or, like this kind of thing. So they like action and adventure. So if you're feeling like a bit down and you're a wood person, you feel like, I'm not getting I don't have my mojo up. So I need to stimulate my creativity a bit to kind of think about what do I really want, get myself in the zone. Action and adventure are good for that. So if you like to kind of go out, do something different that you've never done before, go to a different place that you've never gone to before. Now, it doesn't have to be the other side of the world. I struggle with this at the moment because I used to travel a lot before the pandemic. Obviously, we can't just travel anymore in Australia. They've just kind of shuttled it down. So we can only travel around in our own state. But there's lots of places you can go to that are adventurous in your own place that you might not have even explored, right? So don't discount that. That's a possibility. That's something you could do. All right, we've just done this stream for ages. It's like a 1.5 hour stream. So I think I'm probably going to leave it there because that's heaps and heaps of information for people to talk about the new year. And that's really what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to give people a bit of encouragement. It doesn't matter if you're not feeling the mojo. for the new year. And if you didn't get all of that down and you've come in late or whatever and you've missed your part for your element, I've got a video on each of the 5 elements, and I've got a second video for each of the 5 elements on the channel as well about your new year goals for whatever that year was, and it doesn't matter, it's still relevant to this year. So thanks so much for your attention. I wish you a happy new year. I hope you have a great one. Stay safe, don't drink and drive. Just enjoy yourself wherever you are in the world. I'm so glad you enjoyed this stream as well. It's a stream as well. Thank you so much for your super chats. And I really hope that I'll see people on the course that's happening next year. So if you've got a question about the course and you've signed up to the ebook, you'll have my email and you can sign up. You can send me an email. I'd love to hear what you think about the book, the ebook. It's only 1 chapter. I've got to write the rest of it. But yeah, have a great rest of the day, and happy, healthy new year, everyone. Definitely, that's a great one to end the stream on. Thanks, Veronica. And yeah, stay well and keep your interest in Chinese medicine. It's the best. I'm a bit biased here, but it's the best medicine in the world. All right, take care.